obviously yesterday, I think everyone around the world was pretty stunned with basically the tacit admission that Trump is throwing the Ukrainians under a bus. He is betraying them very much. And I think that is the language we should still be using on this. And it is worth reminding people the constant thing I have brought up, the historical example of this, the whole reason why the Korean War kicked off. The whole reason why the Korean War kicked off was that at that time, the American Defense Secretary did not mention South Korea in a speech about where America considered its defensive and strategic interests, and Korea was not mentioned in that speech. Because at the time, the Defense Secretary didn't think he had to. This then caused a cascading scale of events where the North Korean leaders spoke to the leaders in China at the time and said, well, actually, he didn't mention it. Green light. Go talk to Moscow. Moscow goes, oh yeah, he didn't mention it. Green light. Okay, invasion away. Right? Often one of the reasons Korean War is cited because of that speech. And unfortunately now, when we look at this and what, not only have we seen bloggers from Russia say this, we've seen Russian TV and media sort of tee this up. But now we're also seeing Kremlin insiders basically say that as far as they're concerned, Trump has now given the green light to expand his war and to attack into Europe because there is no now fear of American retaliation. This is worrying. This is very, very worrying. We should be very worried about this on this front. So yeah. So do remember to give this a like and a share. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So this is looking at the Daily Beast with the title of Laughing Kremlin Insiders Say that Trump has now given Putin the green light to expand the war. So US President Donald Trump now stunned the world by offering now unprecedented concessions to Russia in its ongoing invasion of Ukraine on Wednesday, seemingly without getting, of course, anything in return before the formal peace talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin even started. So you've already made concessions before you've even begun talking. Yeah. Sort of really it's really trumped everything on this one. He's really trumped this one up. Anyway, Trump and even members of his administration have, of course, dismissed the idea that Ukraine could reclaim its territories that Russia currently occupies, slamming the door shut now for Kyiv's hope of NATO membership and refusing to acknowledge Ukraine now as an equal member in the peace process. This is, as we said last time when this came out, and sort of my initial response to this is all our worst fears come true about this. This is exactly what we feared Trump would do. We hoped at least some of the stuff he'd been saying a couple of weeks ago maybe indicated this wasn't about to happen. But however, this now has indeed happened, and it is the worst case possible scenario for all of this. So while the Ukrainians and their allies were left in disbelief, Russian state TV and radio stations were now full of elated propagandists who now grinned from ear to ear and periodically now broke out into uproarious laughter. During Wednesday's broadcast now of the state TV program 60 Minutes, the host Ola Silbergiv described now events as unthinkable and unimaginable and asked Mikhail Antov, the network's correspondent in Europe, what does it all mean? Ukraine is left without NATO. Ukraine is left without money. Antov said that the era now of American dominance had now ended, and that to summarize, that Europe wouldn't be able to compete with the volume of military assistance America used to provide. Throughout his commentary, Skelver smiled very broadly and couldn't even hide her glee. Co-host and, of course, 60 Minutes, Evgenia Popov marveled at the fact that Trump is now doing Moscow's job by destroying Western alliances and now sawing Europe into pieces, something that the Kremlin had dreamt of doing all along. This is why I've said it before and I keep on saying it again. I think Europe now more than ever needs to realize about being united more so than ever, militarily, economically, politically. you know. Anyway, for years, Russian state TV experts predicted that Trump's, of course, return to the Oval Office would mean cutting off American aid to Ukraine, which would in turn now change the odds in their favor. However, even the Kremlin talking heads are surprised by the speed of the Trump's gallop towards Moscow, and it was amazed that the leader of the mightiest nation in the world is now treating the war criminal Putin as his equal. Exactly. Why on earth would you show such respect to this? And what may happen, what may hear in the coming weeks and days is very worrying indeed. Especially for the Ukrainians, because there's just so many questions about the future of Ukraine now that are just unanswerable. So anyway, it continues. During Wednesday's broadcast of This Evening with Vladimir Sokolov, the Director General of Mostafa, of Mosfilm, Karen Shalkulvas, weird Russian names, said that regardless of what happens in the future, Wednesday's revelations can be described as Russia's big success, he said. The President of the United States called the President of Russia. That alone is already a major success. Shalkov explained that the blockade has now been broken. This means that to a lot of them, that the President of the United States, the mightiest nation in the West, as great as the Roman Empire, made this call. It's as if Julius Caesar telephoned a barbarian, the chief of some German tribe. You can see how this is really being spun and what they're interpreting this as. And what's them to stop now going to Europe? What is to, like I say, it gets even worse. Anyway, Solov even rejoiced by an assertion by the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth that the United States intended to even disregard NATO's Article 5 in the event of a European military engagement with Russia. Political scientist Sergei Malvov said that in this situation, we should make it clear to the Europeans, we can now really strike Brussels, London, Paris, because we can forget about Article 5. You can even forget, of course, that the notions that Americans would even step in because we cannot, because we can forget about Article 5, because we can forget about the notions that the Americans would, of course, step in on your behalf. Sorkov claimed, I like the way you think. Again, if that is the way they are thinking, and again, Russian propaganda does repeat the way of what goes on in the Kremlin, we can only think what is generally going on in the Kremlin right now. If they are openly saying this on state TV, that yeah, we can now strike, Brussels, London, and Paris, and we don't have to worry about Article 5. What does that mean for the future? It's very worrying indeed. But during Thursday's radio show Full Contact, Sokolov approvingly, of course, read commentary by the network's correspondents with the US, Valentin Bolgov, who wrote that during negotiations, the victors are the ones who are dictating the conditions. This is the foundation for diplomacy. and the entirety of what is being dictated should be said in the Russian language. So you can pretty much interpret that as far as the Russians are concerned, they have won, they are the victors. We get to dictate the terms of surrender now. That is worrying. That is incredibly worrying. Zoloff even added that the telephone conversation between Trump and Putin has now caused total collapse of Zelensky's world, and Europe is now insanely panicked. He said that Trump's now approach follows the logic of Putin's ultimatum back in December of 2021, where he claimed that NATO expansion was the core reason for the invasion, which again, it wasn't, while gloating, of course, about the Trump administration now repeatedly reiterating its belief that Ukraine must concede certain territories to Russia. Solkov even sternly asserted that Russia does not intend to relinquish any of its conquests. So basically, fully admitting, we conquered this territory, it's now ours. Why can't another country just do this as well and get away with it? Yeah. This same view has now reverberated all across Russian state TV, Dimir, with experts now urging the military to advance quickly and take as much as Ukrainian land as possible. After Putin's negotiations with Trump, they are now fully anticipate being able now to keep all the spoils and even evade the consequences. And that is what's going on in the Kremlin right now. That is what's coming from Russian state TV. It is what all these people are saying. If that is what they are willing to say on Russian state TV and Russian media, what is going on in the Kremlin? What are they saying? Europe has to be really prepared for a real united defense on this and real on this. I always said there would be consequences if stuff like this would happen, and we are seeing it now. What's to stop Russia maybe doing another basic, blatantly obvious Salisbury poisoning? What's to stop them doing that in another country? It's worrying, really worrying how dangerous it has suddenly got now in Europe. And we have to take that seriously. We have to take that very seriously indeed. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. But yeah, it is getting very dangerous, I think, ever more so. So, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, click the like and share button on your way out. And of course, we'll see you all next time.